A Knight at the Crusades. That's knight with a K. There were various crusading orders of knights founded during the conflicts, and most of these exemplify the mixed morality of the Crusades. The Knights Hospitallers were founded to care for the sick and the wounded, but eventually took up arms and started putting people into hospital. I suppose that's one form of alternative medicine. Another crusading order, the Teutonic Knights, started running a tent hospital for pilgrims at Acre in 1189 and ended up fighting in the Baltic and Russia, where they encouraged the pagan inhabitants to embrace Christ. The most famous of these orders are the Knights Templar, founded in 1118 to protect pilgrims to Jerusalem. King Baldwin II of Jerusalem granted space for their headquarters in the captured Al-Aqsa Mosque on Temple Mount. The Templars believed this to be the temple of Herod the Great, a bit of a schoolboy error since Herod's temple had been burnt to the ground 1,000 years earlier, but with a blissful stupidity they took their name from this, a temple. They also took the building as a kind of ideal church pattern and built a series of churches throughout Europe in this circular plan. Perhaps the best known of these is the 12th century Temple Church in London. They grew immensely wealthy and powerful, so much so that they too in the end were purged. The French King Philip IV, in connivance with Pope Clement V, suppressed the order on a series of fabricated charges and false confessions extorted through torture. The leaders of the order were executed as heretics and their wealth and lands confiscated. The order disappeared, and today the only place it is found is in the pages of dubious thrillers, where the Knights Templar are always depicted as a cunning, clever secret society in possession of mysterious secrets. In fact, they were a bunch of people so stupid that they built a series of churches based on the floor plan of a mosque. Say what you like about the Crusades, they did bring us some benefits, such as the apricot, and St. George becoming patron of Saint of England, and, well, that's probably it. Anselm and the God-Man. In the 11th century, schools of education had grown up around certain cathedrals and Benedictine monasteries. These developed into what were called cathedral schools. Berengar, head of the Cathedral School of Tours, was a man renowned for his piety and asceticism. But, whisper it, there were rumours that he was not entirely orthodox. It was claimed he believed that the theory of transubstantiation, the idea that the bread and wine of the Eucharist actually turned into the body and blood of Jesus, could not be literally true. He was opposed by Lanfranc of Normandy. God's truth revealed by the Church is perfect, Lanfranc argued. The evidence of your own senses is not to be believed if it is contradicted by the authority of the Church. Berengar was excommunicated by Leo IX, and in the end was forced to submit to the traditional teaching. He never got over the way he was treated, and retreated to an island near Tours where he lived the rest of his life, in solitude, silence, and with a brooding sense of injustice. Lanfranc was succeeded by Anselm, 1033 to 1109, who later became Archbishop of Canterbury. He didn't believe that logic and reason were incompatible with the traditional teachings of the Church. He used logic in his famous theory, which is called the ontological argument for the existence of God. It goes like this. 1. God can be defined as the greatest thing imaginable. 2. Things that really exist, by definition, are greater than things that are imagined. 3. Therefore, God must exist, because otherwise he would not be the greatest thing imaginable. It's an argument so circular you could use it as a hula hoop. Anselm's most influential work, though, was Cur Deus Homo, literally, why God man. It was an attempt to work out why God had to become man and die on the cross. The traditional teaching had been the ransom theory. Satan held the human race captive, and Jesus' blood paid the ransom price. But Anselm couldn't see how that worked at all. I mean, God is really big and powerful, right? More powerful than Satan, certainly. So if Satan kept humanity captive, surely God could just kick down the doors and release the prisoners by force. Instead, Anselm suggested that everyone had dishonored and disobeyed God. They had sinned, and God cannot just overlook this. Otherwise there would be no difference between good and evil, and no incentive to choose between the two. He had to receive satisfaction. But while humanity owes God satisfaction, none of us is good enough to pay it, because all have been devalued by sin. Only God, in fact, is great enough to be able to pay this price. So God entered the world as Jesus and offered himself up to be killed. This made satisfaction for the human race, of which he was a part, and which he represented. It's a theory rooted in feudal society, where honour has to be restored by satisfaction. but it has proved to be the most influential of all theories of the atonement.